So in this video, I wanted to share that the one and only time I ever was fired from a job was my first job teaching yoga. And it was the best thing that happened to me. So here's a little bit about the story. I was in my Bikram training and a studio came to see the graduates and they saw me. And at that time, I didn't even have a cell phone yet. Most people didn't. So I flew back to Vancouver and basically had a message on my answering machine saying, "Hey P, we saw you at the graduation. You taught really well. You're on the roster tomorrow, 6 and 8 a.m. So diarrhea, shock, panic. No return phone number to be like, no. And for my personality, I just couldn't bear somebody not showing up to a class. So set my alarm and off I trundled to a studio in like West Side Vancouver, and I bombed hard. I bombed really hard. I just wasn't ready to teach my first class. And in that particular training, you teach each asana and you're evaluated on the asana, but not once do you have an experience of putting the asanas together and of sharing the full class. So really my first my first time teaching a full class was live in front of 25 people. I wrote a post about this ages ago, but a lady booed, like literally booed me on the stage and walked out. And it was great because I had to go back in and teach the 8 a.m. and, face all my nerves and just show up anyway. So this was my experience with this particular studio. And after about a month, I, like baby steps, started to find my flow. And I really loved when people went from the standing series down into the floor series. You feel how the energy just kind of drops down. And so I would either dim or turn off the fluorescent lighting at that time. So fast forward, the studio owners found out that I dimmed the lights and they fired me. But what was so interesting is they fired me without me knowing. So they held a yoga teachers meeting and all my other comrades and teachers came together. And they basically made an example of me in front of the group, that I didn't follow the protocol and didn't fit into the system, so to speak, and I was fired. But neither owner ever reached out to me to fire me personally. And so what was so interesting is on that very exact same day, another studio, which was my home studio that I absolutely loved on Commercial Drive, the owner, Christian, reached out and was like, "P, what would it take to get you to leave the other studio and just like join us full time? Like 8 to 10 classes a week. I've got the space. I can make it happen. You really feel like you're a part of the family." And I remember feeling this tickle of excitement, flattery, just, "Ooh, yes." And then being like, "Oh, but I've committed to this other place. I don't want to let them down." So I said, just give me a moment to think on it. A couple hours later, I get a phone call from another yoga teacher who was teaching at the studio where I was fired. And she just said, "Hey, Pia, I just want to let you know I thought that was handled really poorly and I just wanted to check in that you're okay." And I'm like, "Okay, about what?" And she's like, "Getting fired." I'm like, "I'm fired?" She's like, "Oh yeah, they fired you in front of all of us. They didn't tell you?" I'm like, "No." But I'm giggling with joy because getting fired was the best thing that happened. And how gorgeous, the synchronicity that there was another opportunity more fruitful and more nurturing for my own personal evolution right there in the same moment. So like a sliding door, as I immediately called Christian and said, "Yep, I'm in, I'm all yours, totally committed, this is my studio." And what was so gorgeous was making the switch to this other studio on the drive. It really became a part of my origin story as a yoga teacher. There were a few experiences where none of us got paid, And within that experience, we really got to see, well, what is the studio about? And like, it was me in a team with 6 other male yoga teachers, and they would just hang out at the studio all day and, to be honest, smoke spliffs, do the djembes. It was just wild. Bob Marley was always playing. All the walls were graffitied. But the single mamas could come, and the single mamas were invited to practice for free. And so these epic women would come in and leave their babas in the foyer with all these dreadlocked, Rasta, DJ, hip hop yoga teachers just looking after their babies, free childcare, right? The true essence of community. They'd come in and practice the class, come out, shower, scoop up their baby, go downstairs to the organic health shop below. And it just really was such an auspicious time, that first year of my teaching. And I'll never forget the very first class I taught in that studio. The studio owner, again, Christian, he was really big on my path then. He stopped me at the door and he took off my stopwatch, because in those days you would keep time with Bikram. And he took away my stopwatch and asked me to close my eyes. And he said, "Put your hand on the door, P." I put my hand on the door. And he said, "Ask spirit to move through you." So I asked. And he said, "Let go of time." And that was the best teaching. I walked in, I let whatever wanted to come through, and somehow class always started and ended exactly on time. I'm wishing you lots of love on the journey of teaching yoga, and just to remember, these frictions are not necessarily negative, even in a case of getting fired or laid off or asked to fit into a particular shape that's just not a right match for you. They're all helping to create a pressure and a friction, right, for the true diamond that is you, the true diamond of what you've come here to share, which is specific and it's unique to your own gifts.